Welcome to the All About Us podcast, where we explore the journeys, transformations, and human stories that shape who we become. I'm your host, Carl Allen. Today's guest has devoted his life to helping others rise above adversity and step into their true potential. Stephen Rue is a renowned lawyer, certified trauma recovery life coach, speaker, and best-selling author. His academic path includes degrees from SMU and Loyola University, leadership training from Harvard Law School, and ongoing doctoral work that deepens his expertise in human behavior and high performance. Over the years, Stephen has helped thousands flourish. His words blend decades of legal mastery with a profound understanding of personal growth, trauma recovery, and the tools needed to navigate life's challenges. His insights are both practical and transformative. His offering a roadmap for becoming the person you are meant to be. Today, we will talk about his journey from personal adversity to his success as a family law attorney, life coach, and motivational speaker. And we'll dive into his new book, Must, Becoming the Person You're Meant to Be. Stephen, welcome to the All About Us podcast show. How are
It's
you doing
very much a
today?
pleasure to be here, Carl. I'm here to share my experiences and add to the so many other wonderful people that have been on this podcast before me.
Journey through adversity. Stephen, can you take us back to your early years and share some of the experiences that shaped your understanding of adversity?
Sure, we all have events in our lives that shape our lives. For me, the first thing that happened that was remarkable in actually a negative way at first was the fact that my parents got divorced when I was around 6 years old. That in of itself was not that remarkable in today's world. However, what was unfortunate was that my father decided to essentially abandon his family, and in myself and my younger sister. And after just a few visitations, he essentially wasn't in my life for the rest of my life up to now and until he died. He
Well, it
died at
seems
80
like
years
you
old.
and I have the same story, actually. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Not at all, yes. And so after that, it was difficult. My mother started dating, and she dated someone from high school that she knew in high school, didn't date in high school, but his name was Rodney Rue. I've adopted his name since. But they started dating, and ultimately they got married. He was a wonderful man. He ended up being an eye doctor. We moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and I thought everything was going great. I was up in camp in North Carolina one summer. I was 11 years old. I got a call from the head of the camp saying I needed to come in and talk to him, and they said I had to go home. My father had a heart attack. Well, what I ultimately learned when I got back to Atlanta was that my father didn't have a heart attack, he was dead, because he went up to his closet one Sunday and put a gun in his mouth and killed himself. That day was a day that changed my life forever. It shattered our existence, it shattered our Camelot, it shattered what we thought was the wonderful life we were gonna have, and all of a sudden, as 11 years old, my mother had grave difficulties. She had mental health issues, a nervous breakdown, and at 11 years old, I felt I had to be the man of the house for some reason. It's amazing how as young children, we try to find responsibilities, but I felt that I was abandoned by the only father I really, really, really knew. I was abandoned by my first father, and then my mother, through her own strives, abandoned us in her own way as well. And so that moved me greatly. But also I saw something in my mother that was left an indelible mark on my soul. 2 days after my father committed suicide and I was home, I walked into the bedroom and I found my mother on the floor in the carpet in the closet, and she was trying to scrub the blood off out of the carpet floor. She looked at me and saw me standing there looking at her, and she got up and said, "Stephen, I will never let anything like this happen to you again." At that moment, I knew that she found her must, her purpose, her indelible non-negotiable, that she was gonna take care of her children no matter what happened in life. And I saw that, and I continue to see that. She's 88 years old today. And then I realized that I had a lot to learn. I had a lot of pain that I had to deal with, and that was one of the first incidences or series of incidences in my life that changed me forever.
Beside that very traumatic event in your life, what were some of the defining moments that push you toward law and personal transformation?
Well, I was born with some physical difficulties as well. I was severely tongue-tied. I had some severe pronation, had to wear steel braces on my legs just like Forrest Gump, and I had a bad concave chest, so I had a very poor self-image of myself. And my uncle, my mother's younger brother, turned out to be a lawyer, and I he was the closest thing to a role model that I had as a male. And so I went into law not because I thought that was a thing that I was destined for, but that's what my only role model as a male did. So I followed like a sheep a path into law. But once I got into law, I thought I was going to be doing all kinds of different things, but there was something about family law, particularly, that drove me to it. I wanted to help people that were having troubles in their family life because I had troubles in my family life. I saw it firsthand. I felt it firsthand. And then I decided if I was gonna do something, I was gonna be really, really good at it because I learned from my mother that you have to have that grit, that persistence, that gumption, that irresistible desire to conquer these things and to help other people and help yourself. The first part of my personal development journey was trying to figure out myself, trying to heal myself, and was less about trying to help other people in all candor. So I went to Tony Robbins seminars. I read books. I saw Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, Les Brown, and they became also my mentors of sorts. And I was trying to figure out myself, trying to eliminate that that was in me, that was in my heart. I felt that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't loved, and that I needed to figure out how to get out of that quagmire, how to get out of that rut of life. And I had to try to pull it out myself. My mother was doing the best that she could, but I needed to do it for myself. And so I went on that journey to help myself. And then once I got to a point that I felt I really knew myself, there was a day at a Tony Robbins seminar that they ask you to do some inner child work. They ask you to figure out, well, how are you now? Are you doing okay? Are you in your state of mindfulness? Are you in a better place? And the answer is clearly was yes. And close your eyes, you're laying on the floor, go back to that inner child, the point where you were most hurt. Hold that child, hold that young Steve, the one that had to be the man of the house, and hold that child and say, you did a wonderful job, but I'm here to take you into the future, take you with me. You're okay now. And so I did that. I woke up, I cried, I felt relieved and purified through that process. That hurt child no longer had to be kept in that past, but then I could bring that child into the future, having gone through a healing process through the help of others and through the help of myself. And that was the pivotal point, that when I got to the point that I was essentially okay with myself, that I could then turn that focus on others. And then having the ability to have my law degree, my MBA, to perpetually continue to learn, to go on for my doctorate, to learn trauma specialties from LSU, and then to learn more leadership styles from Harvard Law. All of these things have been an accumulation of me trying to gather the tools necessary to help other people because I've represented thousands and thousands of people in my career. And I'm a little bit of a different kind of lawyer because I think that if I can help a person as a human being, then they're going to be better litigants. They're going to be better parents, and they're going to be better for themselves. And so I've always had this element in my law practice of being a counselor for them beyond law. And that's kind of where I am today.
You've helped so many people through difficult chapters. How did your own challenges influence your desire to serve?
I always kind of had that desire to help other people and to love other people unconditionally, but I never really knew how. And I started to figure out how. And the gift of our pain, the gift of our suffering is in our ability to relate to others, to let everyone know, anyone that's watching or listening to this podcast can understand that you're not alone. I've been there too. Carl's been there too. We all have had our different flavor of suffering. It's all unique, distinct, but yet still we've had our experiences of this suffering. And sometimes even not necessarily saying anything, but being there helps. Like when someone is grieving, no one can tell someone how to grieve, but to know that other people care about you has a healing effect, does improve the circumstance. And that's what I hope to do, to show people that I am here present for you, but I'm also here gathered with the wisdom that I've got from luminaries that I've actually become to know many of them. I know Tony Robbins. I know Brian Tracy. I know Les Brown. I know Jack Canfield. It's shocking that I know these wonderful people that from my youth and young adulthood are now my friends. And we talked about things, and I'm here to help other people now, eyeball to eyeball, not from standing above or below, but together at the same level because we're all human beings. We all have the commonality of life. One thing that happens to all of us is a thing called life. I heard that recently and I just love it. You know what happened to me today? Life happened to me today. Wow. Life? Did that happen to you too? Oh my goodness, life happened to me today. So I ask people all the time, now that life has happened to you today, what are you going to do about your life? What are you going to do?
Was there a turning point when you fully embraced the idea that personal growth would become a lifelong mission for you?
The more I did, the incremental changes that I dedicated myself to, it had a snowball effect. Once you gather the momentum and the inertia of learning, of trying to understand and continuing to learn, continuing to listen to audiobooks, continue to read books, continue to go to seminars, continue to go to any counselors that you may have, whether they be religious, secular, teachers, whatever it may be. We all are gaining knowledge. And as we gain knowledge, that desire, that motivation turns into a habit, turns into a discipline. And when we have those habits and disciplines, those small incremental changes have a compounding effect. And my desire, my relentless desire to help other people has grown every day, every inch, every word, every step, every breath of my life as a result of that.
What inspired you to realize or specialize, excuse me, in family law, a field that often involves deep emotional complexities?
I found that what I quickly saw was that when people get divorced, they become so angry, become so hurt that they will lash out and do whatever that they can because they feel like they no longer have control. I saw that in my mother's first marriage when I was only 6 years old. I saw and experienced that. To the day that my biological father died, my mother hated him. She carried that hate that only hurt her. And I wanted to try to get people to understand that they need to let go of that pain. A lot of that pain comes from the fact that they used to love that person and their image and identity of the life that they were going to have with each other disintegrated. It crumbled. It imploded. And a lot of people don't want to take any responsibility whatsoever for being part of it, but everyone has to take a partial responsibility when someone, you know, breaks up in a relationship. And that doesn't mean the relationship's a failure. It may have been a bridge and not a destination. And so I want to help people, and I've done so for thousands and thousands of people to try to understand that they can be okay. They can move forward and use it as a learning experience to become number one, a better person, to develop a better relationship skills. And if they're parents, to be better parents. You still have to co-parent. You still have to deal with these things. And quite frankly, most people, when they get divorced, it's harder financially because when two people are living together, it's cheaper and more affordable than if you have two different families, but still you have the same amount of kids. And so there are extra stresses that go with divorced people, and they need to understand each individually that they're going to get through this. It's one of those things in life that happens and that they're going to be okay. They will.
How do you balance professional advocacy with compassion when clients are going through the painful transition?
Carl, I have a real hard time with that in all candor because I am such a tiger. I'm a lion. I'm a gladiator. I'm superb at what I do, and I'm not shy about saying it. Maybe a little ego, but it's based with fact. And when I'm in the courtroom, I'm there to win. But I really work hard to have my clients be the best human beings and parents that they can be. As long as they cooperate in that process, I have no problem with doing my job because I'm not the one making the decision. I'm the one that's making the presentation to a judge. The judge makes the decision. And I want the judge to make the decision based on clarity of information, based on knowing all of the facts. And that judge will do what's in the best interest of the parties and most particularly the children. So as long as I'm doing my job and advocating very strongly, there's no conflict. And so I try to work hard to make sure that it happens. Sometimes I don't like my clients because they're not taking responsibility. And I try to help them. And they're, at some point, sometimes I just have to say, I'm sorry, you really need to get another attorney because I don't feel like I can fully, zealously represent you. It doesn't happen too often, but I do it.
What lessons about resilience and healing have you learned from the individuals and families you've represented?
I've learned that we all have the commonalities of life. We all have problems. Everyone thinks those people are strange down the street. What a weird couple. Can't believe they're doing this, that, and the other thing. But the reality of it is we all have our quirks. Everyone up and down your street in your neighborhood is a little strange in some fashion. And that's not bad. That's being human. That's being each of us individually different, just like we have different fingerprints. And we all have problems and we all don't necessarily know how to deal with them. And we all have expectations of other people. For example, you're in a relationship. So many people get in relationships when they're not ready to be in a committed relation because what they try to do is say, I'm going to change that person. No, you're not. No, you're not. People only change if they want to change. And the majority of people don't change, unfortunately.
Unless
Majority
they
of
hit
people have
rock
a fixed
bottom.
mindset. I'm sorry?
I said, unless they hit rock bottom,
Yeah,
then maybe.
unfortunately, a lot of people just kind of wade just above the rock bottom. They can see the floor. They might even be able to touch it with their toes, but they wade just above it. And then they're in this comfort zone that they or don't have the desire to compel and propel themselves into a different place. Too many people are in what I call the pity pool of the comfort zone. Most people are. And most people are for one simple reason because they have limiting beliefs. People have limiting beliefs that were taught to them in their formative years and even in their adult years. People have what's called learned helplessness, just like they used to have elephants in circuses that they would chain up until the elephant would walk around in the tent. And then they would replace that big heavy chain that that elephant could not escape from with a small rope or even a twine, but that elephant thinks I can't escape. And that's what people do. They believe erroneously, falsely, that they can't escape their own circumstances and their own environment, and they can. And then the next problem is they don't know how. And that's why I wrote my book, Must Becoming the Person You're Meant to Be, because the problem with most self-help books, personal development books, is that you don't know where to start. You go to Amazon, you go to Barnes& and Noble, you go to Books A Million, you go to Goodreads, whatever wherever you wanna go to the library. You don't know where to start. Do I pick up a book on goal setting? Do I pick up a book on habits? Do I pick up a book on mindset? What in the doggone do I do? Well, my book helps them down a yellow brick road of trying to identify what to do. The quick answer is you have to start with learning who you really are and who you are really meant to be. And then you can figure out that. Everyone wants to jump to right away to their purpose. What is your why? You see all kinds of things on the internet, social media. You got to learn what your why is. Well, that's true. However, if you jump to your why too soon, you're living someone else's purpose. You're not living your own purpose because you don't really know who you are. Because part of your own self perception, your own story, your own personal narrative is based on lies of limitation, lies of things you can't do. So we need to recreate, reevaluate, eliminate our learned helplessness, our limiting beliefs, and replace them with quality beliefs that we are in fact, our own superheroes. And then and only then should we really start working on our purpose.
Hey, has working in family law influenced your views on trauma recovery and human connection?
Yes. The first thing is what I've seen through virtually all of my clients, very few that come in that don't have a certain personal narrative, a personal dialogue, if you will, of victimhood. Everyone thinks that this divorce, this custody situation is something that has been imposed upon them, and they are the victim in the circumstances of life. And I try to get them out of that mindset because it doesn't serve them well. It just flat out doesn't. Their circumstance is their circumstance. We can recognize those facts without adopting a mindset that they are out of control. Just like the serenity prayer, we need to know what we're in control of and what we're not. But they need to understand that you as an individual, you're in control of so much more than you probably think that you are. And that once you change someone's mindset, and what I do is I go through a process that I ask them to take, I give them a blank sheet of paper and I ask them to write, I am on the top of it. And I said, I'm going to leave the room for around 10 minutes. I just want you to just brainstorm and just flow out everything that you think that you are. Write it down on the sheet of paper. And there's more paper where it is. I give them more than one sheet of paper. Just please do this. And then I come back in and then I read it with them out loud. And I say, well, you said that you aren't a good this, you aren't a good this. You can't do that. You have all these limitations. Is that true? No, lots of things are not true. And so I said, okay, what we're going to do is I'll be right back. I have one of those old fashioned shredders. I literally shred their story of I am. I said, okay, who do you want to be? Who do you believe that God intended you to be if you're religious? And if you're not religious, who do you believe you should be? Here's a new sheet of paper. Write it down from a different perspective. First of all, if you think that you're a victim, you're going to act like a victim. You're going to put on the personification of a victim. You're going to talk like a victim. How does a victim talk? Oh, slow. How does a person that believes in themselves? They stand up better. They speak louder. They speak faster. How do people talk to themselves? Words count. Oh, I can't do this. Yes, I can do that. Words count because they become your contract with yourself. And then your own physiology. It's this kind of stuff, but it's also what you focus on. There's an old saying, they teach racetrack drivers, you want to get around the loop of a racetrack, you focus on where you want to go and not the bumpers, not the side rails. Because if you focus on the side rails, you're more likely to hit them. So I said, What we're going to do is you're going to create a new narrative of I am, who you are, your new story, not based on your limiting beliefs, based on your new physiology, based on your new words about yourself, based on your new focus of where you want to be and who you're intended to be, your non-negotiables of your new self, and write that down. Because I just shredded your old story. I shredded your old story. So there's a vacuum there. You need to create a new one. And if you're going to create a new story for yourself, why don't we make it a good one? Why don't we make it a story worth reading? Why don't we make it a story that you're doing something in your life that is remarkable for yourself and for your loved ones? Why don't we do that? And I said, let me tell you something else. Let's take off your old relationship hat. And if you're a parent, put on your parent hat because you're going to do something much more and be stronger for yourself and for your children wearing your parent hat than your old relationship hat. You need to cut the umbilical cord of your old relationship and do a new independent person, being a parent if you're a parent. And you're going to be a hell of a lot stronger and you're going to do a much better job. And the story you're going to write down in your I am is going to be much more compelling.
Yeah.
And then let's proceed with the litigation because now you're a different person. Congratulations. Let me introduce myself again. Now, who are you?
Let's talk about trauma recovery and personal growth. As a certified trauma recovery life coach, what core principles guide you towards the fight?
Well, Dealing with trauma, I think it's very important that we try to objectify our trauma as much as possible. Try to, what I call, look at your suffering from a suffering basket. Give you an example. Loneliness. We need to take our loneliness away from our personal identity and look at it in front of us like we're putting it on the kitchen table. Oh, look at this. This is an ornament of loneliness. I'm looking at this ornament of loneliness here. Interesting. Why am I lonely? I'm lonely because I don't have any friends. I'm lonely because I don't have someone in my love life. I'm lonely because I don't know how to make friends. And you start analyzing it and go, well, is that true? Is this true? How many friends do most people have? And then you keep on going through this process, say, well, what can I do to solve this problem? I can to this, go out where other people are. I could be proactive and introduce myself to somebody. There are things that I can do to deal with this ornament of loneliness, this ornament of suffering. And then I ask them, because you could pick, it could be anger, it could be loneliness, it could be different sorts of depression, it could be anything. Do you want to pour that back into you, pour that element of suffering back into you, or are we going to leave it outside of you? Because it's significantly different to say, I'm a lonely person. Are you? Or I currently have loneliness. The problem is when we're dealing with trauma and elements of suffering is that we make it part of our identity. We attach our identity to our suffering, to our trauma. We all have to work it out in our own way, at our own pace, but we can make it worse on ourselves. Some scholars, some luminaries say that bad things happen to you, but suffering is optional. I agree and kind of disagree with that because we all can feel and fear more suffering. We all do. We're human. We're human.
How do you help people rebuild when they feel broken or stuck?
One of the things I do is I make them think about times that they were broken before. I ask them, Jane or Jim, then did you think you were going to get past that? And the answer generally is no, that it was so horrendous, so horrible, and they feared the future. And then I ask them, did you get past that? Yes. Wait, you didn't think you were going to get past that, but you got past that. Is that right? Yes. Did you have fear during that time period? Oh, yeah. Horrible fear. I thought the worst thing in the world was going to happen to you. Did it? No. Congratulations. You got past that. You became stronger as a result of that. You became more resilient. You learned from that. Wait, was there another time that you had something happen to you in the past? Oh, yes, there was. Did you get past that? Okay. Well, what would lead you to believe that you're not going to get past this? Because 9 times out of 10, 9 times out of 100, you're going to be able to do that. And you're going to become stronger from it. And life moves on. It's only when you don't, then you get stuck. See, my stepfather, like I told us at the beginning of this podcast, when I was 11 years old, went up to the closet door. I often think about this and put the barrel of the gun in his mouth. And I often imagine the horror in the darkness that he was feeling because he focused on the darkness. He didn't focus on a slightest shift in perspective of his current blessings that were all around him, the grace of life that he had, the things that he could be gratified for. He didn't. But if he had, just a slightest shift in perspective, you might still be here today. And that's what I suggest to people when they're in their darkest moments of life. Two things. Number one, you've had dark moments before and you got past it. Tomorrow will come if you let it. And number two is that the slightest shift in perspective will change everything. Because people think, well, I was blessed before this event and I may be blessed in the future, but I'm not blessed now. People don't see that simultaneously, when we have moments of trauma and suffering, we still can be simultaneously blessed. We still can have people that love us. We still are breathing. We still have beautiful things of life all around us. We still have other relationships. We still have God, if you believe in God. And so if you go with that, you'll be okay. Suffering's gonna happen to all of us. Trauma is gonna happen to all of us. Life happens to all of us. But we have the control on how we look at it, just like Viktor Frankl did when he was in Auschwitz. They could put him in a concentration camp during World War II as a Jew, but they couldn't steal his own mindset. And no one can steal your own mindset but yourself. You have the full ability to help yourself. You should love yourself enough and know you're enough to make that difference.
What patterns do you often see in people who are ready to change, even if they're afraid?
Frustration. If they're frustrated or confused, that is the pinnacle moment just before breakthrough. Because if they're frustrated and confused, that means they're open for an answer. And so if you're feeling frustrated, confused, congratulations. All you got to do is take the next step and move forward, no matter how small or incremental, but do something positive.
How has your understanding of trauma evolved through both your studies and the thousands of lives you touch?
I used to think that trauma, as a child particularly, was so personal and individual that I was the only person in the world that was in the depths of despair, just like I imagined that uh, I was the only person alone in my bedroom. But in reality, if you look at a bird's eye view of a whole neighborhood, there are people in their own homes at that very same moment thinking similar thoughts that they're alone, that they are sad, that they are this and that. And we all just kind of need to get outside of our own homes, communicate to other people, get out of our own heads and be vulnerable enough to say, like Brene Brown says, be brave enough to say that we all are vulnerable. And that is in and of itself a strength. And once you realize that other people have the same events of trauma and suffering in their lives, that's what I've learned over time is that we all do, all of us, everyone listening to these words right now, there are other people listening as well that have experienced different levels of suffering, their different flavor of their trauma.
Let's switch pages now. Let's talk about your new book. What inspired Must and why was the right moment now to write it?
Well, here's my book, Must Becoming the Person You're Meant to Be. We were blessed that it was Amazon #1 in the three personal development transition of life stories that are out there on Amazon. And in just a few months that it's been out there, we've already won 5 book awards so far. And I'm hoping that it changes people's lives. The answer to your question of why now is because it took me 35 years to evolve to become the collector of other people's expertise and then my own perspectives to have enough collective wisdom to truly help people in a consolidated fashion. My book is for people that don't want a quick fix, but a thorough, long lasting fix, that are willing to invest time, energy, and effort and focus in themselves from the get go. I give them the yellow brick road and I'm with them along the way. And I share my traumas in life. I ask them to reflect on theirs. And then we start with mindset. Then we go into evaluating what are their core beliefs and their core values? What is their personal narrative, personal story about themselves? What are the standards that you have in each of the elements of your life? What I call the circle of life. And then once you determine that, then and only then can you start talking about what your purpose is. And when you just determine your purpose, needs to be true alignment with your core values and your beliefs, in your growth mindset, all of these things. But I call it a must mindset, must core belief, must purpose. What do I mean by that? You want to pick your values, your top cream of the crop values in life, your cream of the crop missions, those things that resonate to your soul, that become your non negotiables. Why pick less of something than less to make you less than what you could potentially be? Pick those things that come from lessons of your suffering, come from your passions, come from what makes you, drives you, and attracts you as a magnet too. Do those things. And then, and only then, when you have this must mentality, that you go into what I call your must zone. We talked about the comfort zone, which is what I call a pity pool of life, that no one wants to grow and where most people stay languishing in. And those people that do will never change. If you're listening and watching this podcast, you're not one of those individuals because you want change in your life. You want to become a better person. You want to learn. You want to have personal development. And so, what do we need to do after we create our purpose that is aligned with our true, revised personal identity and story? We need to take action on it because you can have create goals that are aligned with your purpose. But unless, even with these goals and with this purpose, unless you have an action, it serves no purpose whatsoever. Nothing is done, nothing changes. And in order to have action, you need action more than once because it's extraordinarily rare that you do one thing one time and it makes a material difference in your life. That's where that book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, is so wonderful. It speaks to small, incremental habits with the compounding effect, creates new positive habits that can change your life. Then I talk about tenacity, perseverance, and grit. And that's when your true must come to the forefront. Those things that we must do in our lives. I'm going to ask you right now, what are three things that are non negotiable in your life? And if you can't readily answer that question, please do. Please reflect on it. Because once you've determined what are the three non negotiables in your life, it will change your life. Pursue those musts, those non negotiables. And all of a sudden, the fear that keeps people in the comfort zone is no longer there because it's not something that is a disciplinarian. It's not a stick keeping you in that pity pool of life, but instead, fear is nothing more than a clarion call. Something that I have fear. That's wonderful because that means I'm alive. That means I'm progressing. That means I'm doing something special. That means I'm moving forward in my journey of life of becoming. Because our destination is not necessarily the end goal, but it's who we're becoming in our very moment. Because we live in our moments of life, in our presence of life. And if we're moving and feeling the pressures of our existence, that means we are, in fact, progressing. And scientific studies have proven over and over again there are two things that make people happy in life. Number one is progress, and number two is relationships. Harvard studies have proven that. And so, if we can prove that we are moving forward, prove to ourselves through actions, repetitive actions, frequent actions that are aligned with who we are in our purpose, our intentionally designed purpose, then we're going to be so much happier in life and we're not going to be a shadow of our potential.
Okay. The title suggests urgency and purpose. What does becoming the person you are meant to be mean to you person?
I used to search for significance. I'm ashamed to say that now because significance really is ego centered. Significance is I need to feel in some way levitated over the existence of other people. I am ashamed of that. I'm ashamed that I used to think that. Now, look, we all have a need for a certain level of significance, and that's okay. But what I really strive for is meaning. I search for enhanced meaning on a constant basis, enhance contribution, service, legacy. And the best way to do that is get out of your own head. We stay in our head too much. We stay too focused on ourselves. We need to figure ourselves out. A whole book's about figuring themselves out, oneself out. But then through action, we need to figure how we're going to live in life and relate to other people and how we're going to help other people. Because,
I have to I have to laugh at that statement because
yeah,
I used to have a female friend and she used to I would say something and she would respond to me, "That sounds good in your own head, doesn't it?"
I told myself a lot of lies in my life, a lot of lies, and it only time with a certain level of humility, which sometimes comes from obstacles and quote failures in life, that we're humbled enough to then recreate ourselves in a better place.
What do you hope readers will feel or understand after finishing us?
I can basically promise you, you will not be the same person inside and out after you read and reflect upon the messages that I have accumulated in my book.
Can you share one or two guiding ideas from the book that you believe can change someone's life today?
Yes, number one, I would think is standards. You have to live in standards that are entirely aligned with the person that you intend to be. That means we need to pick people in our relationships that really we should be in a relationship with. Now that might be tough if you're in one now and shouldn't be, but guess what? Life's there for change, right? Because again, you can't change other people, but you can change yourself. And then I'm gonna go back to action and stop using the word try. I'm gonna be writing a small book that's coming up. It's already in the works called Killing Try. I want to kill the word try because everyone says, I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to try to go to the gym. I'm going to try to lose weight. I'm going to try to stop drinking. Oh, I'm going to try to make your birthday party. No, you're not. You're lying. It's self sabotage. It is a way to convince ourselves that we are on this journey of improvement, of change, of commitment when we're not. Stop lying to yourself. Stop using the word try. Only use the word try if it's immediately attached to an action. Then it's okay. It's permissible. That's a permissible use of the word try. But I would prefer you use a different word. Instead of saying, I'm trying to go to the gym, I am going to the gym right after I get off this podcast. That's what I would prefer that you say to yourself and to others. Again, language.
Qualifying it in another sense. Do not use try in the future tense. You can use try in the present tense. You can't
Yes.
use the word try in the future tense.
Carl, you're exactly right. As long again, I'm gonna emphasize this. You need to have action in your pocket, okay? If you have action in your pocket when you're saying, "I'm trying" in the present tense, that's fine because that means you're doesn't it doesn't mean you're gonna succeed. I'm not suggesting that you're gonna succeed, and I'm not putting fault on people that continue to do something and don't accomplish their goal, don't accomplish their aim. Yes, absolutely. But what I see for a vast majority of the time is try is not used when someone is speaking in terms of a declaration of purpose. They're saying it as an excuse so that they don't have to even take the effort.
Speaking, leadership, and impact. You've spoken on many stages. What message do you find resonates most with people from all walks of life?
The best leader leads from inside the pack, understanding and communicating that we're all human, that we all have our functions in an organization, in a family unit, as friends. We can be leaders to our friends. We can be leaders in our relationships. We certainly can be leaders no matter what you do at work. The famous story of John F. Kennedy went to NASA and he went up to a janitor, and the janitor was mopping the floor. And President Kennedy said to the janitor, "Sir, hi, how are you? What do you do here?" "I'm helping put a man on the moon," is what the janitor said. And so if we have a common mission with a common understanding that we're all imperfectly perfect people and are here to do something, that's the greatest leadership that you can have. Because there's a thing that asks people, a scientific principle, that a self-determination theory, that people need to have a sense of control and authority for their own lives and accountability for their own lives and feel like they're part of something greater.
How do you use emotional intelligence and high performance strategies when speaking of coaching?
I love the saying of Bruce Lee, "Be water," because so many things, as we talked about earlier, oh, what's happening today? Life is happening to you today. Well, my condolences. Are you okay? That's what most people say. That's because we all have had a negative bias in life that all things are negative, and we should fight for a positive bias in life. But our mindset is so terribly important in how we view things. So sometimes stoicism is a principle that Marcus Aurelius and other luminaries have said from ancient times that we need to be a little bit less hyperbolic, meaning excessive in our feelings one way or another when things happen to us. Not be overly joyful, overly sad, but rather experience them. And then it gives us a moment to do something that I think is critical in life, in all aspects in our life that we can use every day. And that is this simple lesson. Don't react. React is emotional. It generally is spontaneous without thinking. We need to take a moment and then respond with whatever control that we have that is well thought out of the circumstances and what is in your best interest and the best interest of others. So don't react, but respond.
I like
And
that.
then you're gonna have a certain level of emotional intelligence that you can take with you every day, and your life will be significantly improved. One other thing is stop attaching negative things to your identity. We do it too often. This thing in life happened to me. Do I deserve it? Am I just not enough in life? Am I not loved enough? Yes, you are. Don't take it personal. Things happen to everybody. And once we learn that things happen to everyone, like this has been one of the themes of this conversation here today, then we need to understand we need to deal with it. Deal with it. It doesn't have to be hyperbolic. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to have excessive emotion about it. The best way to be is calm, cool, and collected because, like in court, I always tell other lawyers that when I see an emotional lawyer in court, they're out of control. They don't know what they're doing and they're going to lose.
Looking back, how have your roles as an attorney, coach, author, and speaker shaped one another?
I less like being a lawyer. I appreciate the profession. I know it has a job to do. I do believe that quite often lawyers, particularly in the family law area of the law in divorce and custody cases, are fuel to the fire and they make things worse. Lawyers can definitely make things worse, which is the antithesis of everything that I'm trying to do in my personal development career. I'm helping thousands of people internationally change their lives. So my goal is to have a balance to just like doctors are not supposed to do harm and they do harm all the time. But as a lawyer, not to do harm, but only to improve the circumstance for the clients that I represent and others that are directly affected by what I do.
Yeah, I was a single. Well, I still am a single parent, but my one son. I have two sons, but my one son. Oh my God! I stayed in court for 16 years.
Wow.
Fighting for to maintain physical custody of him, and I have to say, I had some good dynamic lawyers. So, but yeah, it
What's
was the
that?
one I had to fire. It was one I had to fire, but the rest of them were very, very good. This part of the show's flip mode. You get to ask me three questions.
Excellent. I've been waiting for this moment, Carl. Okay. Is there anything that I said today that you disagree with? That's number one.
No, it's not anything that you said that I disagree with. I think the two things that hit me most was your, use of try and how people use try future tense to perpetuate a lie. And the other thing which really struck me was the distinction between reacting and responding. Those two things hit me pretty hard. Go ahead.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, it's good either way because I'm not asking people to always agree with me. I don't want to. In fact, a great dialogue creates a different perspective for everybody.
If I had a
So,
different perspective, you would have known.
well, that's good to know too, because then that means you know yourself. And that is a wonderful thing to do. All right. What have you learned about yourself from your own trauma?
I was traumatized from a very early age. Various different things. I don't try to put forth a sob story or horrible one past. But it was just even though there wasn't a whole lot wrong with my childhood, there wasn't a whole lot right either. And so it just made me look at the future and know that down the road I can make things better. I could make things better. And I knew that I could make things better wasn't going to come until I got old enough to leave my mother's house,
So
my mother and father's house.
you said earlier in our conversation that you have to hit rock bottom to change. And so it's a two-part question here, Carl. First of all, if you don't mind sharing with your vulnerability, what was that rock bottom part for you that put you on this trajectory that has led you to this wonderful and enlightening podcast series that you have here today, working to enlighten so many other people?
I think, COVID and the racial upheaval and Black Lives Matter and just all of that distinction of us versus them.
Yeah.
I wanted to erase that. I wanted to erase that and do something more like we all matter.
Yeah.
And get that mutual communication and mutual respect going between people of different races, different indigenous cultures, different
Yeah.
backgrounds. And giving everybody a moment, a chance to really speak from the heart and touch others.
It's interesting this is that you bring up the race issue as part of a motivating thing for you. I live in New Orleans, and New Orleans is a very peculiar place culturally
I've been
from a
there.
black and white perspective, in that we're all intermixed. We've been integrated very well, and yet still there seems to be very distinct cultures simultaneously. But I have been blessed that I am in the largest African American organization in New Orleans. It's a Mardi Gras organization called Zulu, Social Aid and Pleasure Club, and it's an extremely wonderful organization. And I've been a member for over 20 years, and we're extremely well known internationally for Mardi Gras, but it's an organization all year long. We all hang out together. We're all dear friends. I probably have more African American friends than Caucasian friends, in all candor. And what I learned from that experience has been extraordinary. For the 100th anniversary of that organization, I was elected a royal character for the first time for that character in history, the same year that Obama won presidency. And it was an extraordinary, great honor for me. But what I learned going into this environment, being of only 6 Caucasians with over 800 members, African American members, was I kept on wanting to bring up for some strange reason when I started 20 something years ago that I was a white guy. No kidding, Sherlock. No kidding. Yeah, I guess I'm the white guy. And I was taught by my African American brothers, Rue, stop saying that. Stop.
We don't look at it like that.
Right.
See what
Stop saying that. And so I have been there so long that I don't see color anymore. I see human beings. And that has been a wonderful, wonderful experience for me. Soledad O'Brien, back in the day when I was Mr. Big Stuff, was the royal character. She was my Mrs. Big Stuff. She was at CNN at the time. And I had Jean Knight, who originally sang the Mr. Big Stuff song. I got her, and she came and sang the song for us all. It was a great story.
got one more question before this genie disappears.
Okay. The one more question is, what would you like this message to resonate with people that are listening to this podcast here today?
That we all have trauma. That we all have trauma. You have to accept your trauma. You have to rationalize your trauma without
Yeah.
allowing the trauma to defeat you.
Amen. That's true. God didn't give you something you can't handle.
When you think about your journey, what has surprised you the most about where life has led you?
I was always hoping to be significant, as I said earlier. And I knew as even a child that I had to do something that I considered to be great. And the seeds of that thought have evolved and flourished in different ways that I never saw coming. That it takes me out of the equation and makes me merely a vessel to help other people. And that's why I wanted to write the book and write more books that could outlast me, that because this book is a vessel to help people, and it's the pouring in of my personal pain and the pain of my family and the pain of countless other people as exemplars of our commonality, in that we still can rise above. I wrote a book with Les Brown called Rise Above, and we can rise above this adversity into a glorious place. And going through that process of turmoil in our life, we really can start appreciating who we are.
What continues to fuel your passion for helping others unlock their potential?
Every day I have the ability to speak the words that I'm speaking so that someone takes a gun out of their mouth, changes their perspective, believes that their lost job or their divorce or their lost relationship or their disability doesn't necessarily define them unless they choose to.
How do you maintain balance and focus with so many projects and responsibilities?
I have absolutely no balance and I have tremendous focus. I have no balance. There's, the wheel of life. I am full blown helping people because look, I use the fact that I'm getting older as a motivation for propulsion. I got a lot to do still in my life to help people. Every day I can change someone's life. And I'm gonna do it. That is my non-negotiable. That is my must.
Hey, for someone listening who feels stuck in their own adversity, what would you want them to hear today?
Talk to other people, read my book. That's not meant to be a plug, it's meant to be real. It will help them. If you want to, email me. I'll be happy to talk to you, literally.
Okay. Okay.
And,
I'm gonna give
you
you a
can
chance
find
to
me at
give that.
stephenrue.live.
Yeah. I'm gonna give you a chance to give that information in a minute.
Yeah.
What daily practice or mindset helps you keep aligned with your purpose?
First of all, the first thing I do in the morning is I go outside in my backyard and I pray. I also realize how beautiful it is right now. I make a ritual of counting my blessings and the grace that is bestowed upon me and my loved ones. I believe, as a religious man, that I'm living a purpose that is not necessarily driven by my own desires, but by God's purpose in me. If I'm living a life in alignment with not only my own identity, but God's purpose, then nothing can hurt me and I'll be okay and I'm able to help people.
For everyone listening today, how can they contact you? And where can they order the books?
They go to Amazon.com. I have Must by Stephen Rue, M-U-S-T, because must is a common word. You must becoming the person that you're meant to be, or just search my name, Stephen Rue, S-T-E-P-H-E-N, Rue, R-U-E. Go to Barnes& and Noble. Bookstores around the world have my book now. Or you can go to stephenrue.lit.live or live, either one you wanna look at it, L-I-V, and you can find me, my future books. I have another one coming out in January called Must Goals. I also have a guided journal that's out so that people can actually work through the Must book.
Okay. All of that information will be in our promos and in the show notes. Stephen, thank you for sharing your story, your wisdom, and your heart. Your journey shows us that growth is not an accident, it's a choice, a practice, and a commitment to becoming who we truly are. To our listeners, you can explore Stephen's work, coaching, and his new book, Must Becoming the Person You Are Meant to Be, through the links in the episode notes and our promos. This has been the All About Us podcast show, where we celebrate the paths that lead us toward purpose, healing, and personal transformation. Until next time, stay open, stay courageous, and keep growing. Have a great day.